is India Global. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines. First up, Russian President Vladimir Putin is all set to make official visit to India soon. This will be President Putin's first visit to India since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war in February 2022. 1 in 5 ultra-rich Indians are planning to migrate overseas. Well, it's the money that's talking here, and we decode why the uber-rich are looking at better avenues outside India. Canada's Liberal Party bars MP Chandra Arya from the Prime Minister's race. Reports indicate that Liberals have revoked the candidature of Arya over his India or alleged India links. Indian fisherman dies by suicide allegedly in Karachi prison. Indian fisherman was jailed in the Pakistani jail since 2022. This is not the first instance where such deaths have taken place in mysterious circumstances. US President Donald Trump places 25% tariffs on auto imports. Tariffs on all cars that are not made in the US. These will be effective from the 2nd of April. All right, on to our first story on the show. Russia and India are aiming to take their bilateral ties and elevate them from their present status. And for this, President Vladimir Putin is set to visit India soon. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed and stated that arrangements are underway for President Putin's visit to India, though he did not disclose the specific dates or the months that this trip is likely to take place. The invitation for this visit was extended by Prime Minister Modi during his trip to Russia last year, and this will mark President Putin's first visit since the onset of the Ukraine conflict in 2022 February. The visit is expected to advance Putin's new economic roadmap for 2030. So what all could be on the agenda in terms of defense ties, in terms of economic partnerships, common minimum programs, whether it is in terms of the Indo-Pacific or several other areas, technology being another common area. Let's get in Mohammad Ghazali to fill us in with what all could be the top priorities for this visit and how significant it will be for the India-Russia relationship. Ghazali, you're on mute. Okay, I believe there was a technical glitch there. Let's get in Professor Anuradha Chinoy, International Affairs expert, former Dean of the Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies at the SIS at JNU. Always a pleasure to have you, ma'am. Talk to us about the significance of this visit. Comes at a time when Russia-India relationship is also being elevated due to many factors, geopolitical being one of them.
Absolutely. Number one, I think Russia and India and President Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov have both over the past 2 years have said that this strategic partnership with India is extremely important to them. They're actually very grateful that India took the kind of stand it did of being neutral in during the what they call the special military operations. India did not kind of criticize them overtly in the United Nations or when they were, sort of temporary members of the Security Council. They continued trade, bilateral visits, and overall, the Indian political class and the Indian leadership have understood why this special military operation took place. They understood. And so I think these ties are on an upswing. And there are several things that are likely to be on the agenda. Now, I mean, I can
absolutely. I'm going to come to you about the defense partnership in it, but I want to quickly rope in my colleague Mohammad Ghazali back with us to talk more about the specifics of this visit, when it could happen, anything specific in terms of the agenda that's lined up. Tell us more.
See, Gauri, today Dr. Jaishankar also participated in an Indo-Russia summit wherein Mr. Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, had announced that how Mr. Putin is scheduled to come here. The dates are not announced yet, but it is going to be later in this year. And Dr. Jaishankar said that emerging areas of collaboration such as trade, technology, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, connectivity, and the digital economy could be the new points of collaboration. We know that how, as the professor was explaining, that how Russia has been our very close defense partner, and all this while, when the West and US were criticizing India for engaging with Russia, while everybody was calling for its sanctions, India continued its trade. India continued with its ties with Russia. And Prime Minister Modi also happens to be the only leader from the global south who could talk to Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelensky both. Mr. Putin himself have said on many occasions that how India could play the role of a peacemaker or could bring both the parties to the table. So, considering all this and the kind of bonhomie Mr. Modi enjoys with Mr. Putin, it is going to be a very significant visit. Last year in July, Mr. Modi visited Russia, and we had the Indo-Russia summit there, and that summit will yet again be hosted here in India once Mr. Putin visits later this year.
All right, let's leave it there. Mohammad Ghazali joining us to connect the dots for us. Professor Chinoy, you heard what Ghazali was telling us in terms of the context of this visit, why it's significant. But I want to understand from you the geopolitical factors apart. Defense and economic, both aspects of the India-Russia relationship are extremely important. Where do you see the priorities lie, and what would you be looking out for when this visit takes place?
Well, look, there are several things. Number one, defense. Defense, I think Russia has proved itself that it has very superior kind of technology, and the world has witnessed it during this war. India takes 36% of its defense needs from Russia, which has declined because India has diversified and is also buying weapons from France and England and the US, etc. But this 36% is a solid amount. And the other thing is that India and Russia have these joint productions, which have been very successful, like the BrahMos, the T-90 tanks, etc., where there has been transfer of technology which doesn't come from other countries. So high-end technology is what Russia gives to India, and India benefits from that, and both have benefited. So they're exporting, for example, military technologies to Philippines and others.
Yes.
So that's one. Second, on trade, I think Prime Minister Modi himself has said that this trade needs to go up. This is a weak point, and there is an asymmetry on it. We are importing much more because our gas imports from Russia have increased massively by something like 40% in 1 year, because we were able to get cheap Russian gas.
Yes.
The crude, and then re-export it after refining it.
Indeed.
So India has been a beneficiary, but that is likely to continue because I've seen that the 10-year contracts have been signed on this. So it's not just in the past, it goes into the future.
Absolutely.
The third, in Russia has accumulated a lot of Indian rupees because we are exporting so much hydrocarbons, and they want to invest it here, but a process has to be put in place. Of course, there are the Vostro accounts, so there are Russian banks,
yes,
a Sberbank, which are functional here because of RBI has given this.
Yes.
Several countries have these Vostro accounts, but because of sanctions, there have been fears of Indian companies, rightly so, because
Indeed.
they feared this. But you can see there is a reset happening in
Absolutely.
India, in US, Russia. So this is going to benefit India a lot.
Lifting of those sanctions is, of course,
and
going
if the
to
reset happens.
Absolutely, pave the way for more collaboration between Russia and India. Thanks so much, Professor Chinoy, for speaking to us on that. Shifting focus now and talking more about trade. Well, Donald Trump has announced 25% tariffs on imported cars that will be effective from 2nd of April. So brace yourself for more taxes, and these levies mark an escalation in Donald Trump's trade war against top US trading partners and allies. It includes Mexico, Canada being among the biggest automotive suppliers to the US. President Trump said the measure would lead to tremendous growth for the domestic American industry. He's promised that it would spur jobs, it would bring in investments. But the fact is that these duties would prompt companies to manufacture in the US is only part of the premise. The fact is that it will also increase costs because the suppliers will have to factor in those additional levies. What happens then? Is it going to be the customer who will pay in the end, the American customer, or will there be more back and forth, or will there be a greater trade war? Nobody has answers to that because things are only escalating. But European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen described the move as bad for businesses and, well, worse for consumers. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney labelled it a direct attack on Canadian workers. Remember, it's also something that violates the trade pacts that America has signed with Canada, with South Korea, and with several others. Tesla CEO Elon Musk also said that the impact of these tariffs will be felt by his company, Tesla, and it will not be an insignificant amount. So how does this impact auto industry around the world? How does this impact India? I'm going to talk more on that, but first I want to play out these important sound bites for you.
But this is very exciting to me. This is the automobile industry, and this will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen. Before I was elected, we were losing all of our plants. They were being built in Mexico and Canada and other places. Now those plants largely have stopped, and they're moving them to our country.
President Trump announced 25% tariffs against our auto industry. And this is a direct attack, to be clear, a direct attack on the very workers that I stood in front of, uniform workers I stood in front of this morning at the Ambassador Bridge.
All right, it's a power-packed panel that will be joining me today to talk about the tariffs and their impact. But first, I want to put forth those big questions that we always ask, which is, and let's play them out for our viewers to know what all is at stake here. So the first question that I'm going to be asking is, who will face the brunt of Donald Trump's latest levies? Who really is it going to come back to bite the most? Secondly, will India retaliate against these tariffs? Remember, the trade tariffs are never a one-way street, so will we also be retaliating against it? Trump loyalist Musk's Tesla is also hurt by these levies. So what's the kind of impact that Tesla will have to brace itself for? Next, will these tariffs strain the ties that America has with its allies? Japan, South Korea, all are very large players in the automotive global supply chain. Will it impact their relationships? And will stock markets now recover from the tariff impact? They've braced and sort of cushioned some of it, but is there more bloodbath likely to happen because of that? Let's get into to Dhawan from the auto industry, Professor Santosh Mehrotra, as well as Prateek Bansal to understand the stakes and how much can happen from here on. I want to start with Professor Mehrotra. A quick request from all of you, please. We need to keep the answers short so that we can cover as much ground as possible. Professor Mehrotra, let me start with you. As things stand right now, Donald Trump has come good on his tariff threats, one may say. And 25% is a very large number simply because the base auto rate in the US is 2.5%. So look at the rate hikes that he's talking about. What do you expect the impact of this could be?
The impact will be very significant. The US is the world's largest car importer and consumer. And you know that society is actually so heavily dependent upon automobiles. It's not a very railways dependent society, which is tragic for climate change, which all of which we are all paying the price of that. Never mind that, the fact of the matter is that the short term and medium term impact on the consumer and the economy in the US is going to be very adverse. It's going to drive up inflation rates generally and drive up the price of cars. As far as the India is concerned, we don't export any cars to them. We are an exporter of auto parts, but we are not even the biggest exporter of auto parts to them. The imports of auto parts come to about $197 billion, but those are led by Mexico, Canada, and China. That's according to the Commerce Department. So the immediate impacts will be US inflation will be up, car prices already at a time of US inflation being high for the last several years is going to be problematic for the consumers. And finally, the American economy is going to continue to pay, and within 3 years, Mr. Trump will be on his way out.
Okay.
because he will
So
have to
I'm
talk
not
about
going to be most bothered about American consumer. I'm going to be first bothered about the Indian industry, because that's what I want to focus on. And Mr. Dhawan, let me ask you this, that the auto component industry in India does supply to the global auto hubs, whether it's South Korea, whether it's China and several others. How much do you think will be the impact there?
Well, when you are talking of having competition with the other countries also supplying accessories and parts, then obviously there is going to be a lot of impact on our Indian manufacturers who would be exporting these parts. Although when you are talking of such heavy tariffs regarding Mr. Trump, we are not importing any cars from US that we should be bothered about that. But our main concern is that the industry which is supplying parts and bits, they should not get, anyway, they should not be let down.
Okay, Mr. Bansal, I want to understand from you that every second sentence coming out of any of these countries that are impacted by these tariff hikes is that, it violates WTO, it is against the pacts that we've signed with the US in the past, and so on and so forth. What's the value of these agreements? And is there any possible policy recourse? I won't use the word legal recourse, but any policy recourse that any of these countries have, besides, of course, launching trade wars on their end?
So, Corey, we really don't have any sort of, policy recourse as such. I mean, all these agreements were executed in good faith on the basis to sort of promote the trade between both the countries. Apart from this tit for tat situation wherein, we have been seeing that a tariff will also be reciprocated by another tariff by other countries. Canada, Mexico, India, whatever. So, I doubt that you can take any legal or a policy recourse as such, challenging these kind of, tariffs, which
Not
US
even
has
at the
now adopted.
WTO? Not even at the WTO or any other place?
You can file a complaint, but ultimately they are well within their rights to impose these kind of duties. And let me just give you an example. If you see in this budget, the India after Mr. PM met Mr. Trump in the US, India slashed the customs duty on the luxury, on the
Harley
import of
Davidson.
luxury cars and Harley, and as well as luxury cars which are above $40,000, and significantly. I mean, for as far as motorcycles are concerned, I think they slashed from 50 to 40%, and for cars it was slashed from 125% to 70%. So it is well within their prerogative to sort of protect their domestic market by way of sort of increasing these kind of duties, to put these kind of trade barriers. There are many other measures, in fact, if you see, India is being adopting to protect the domestic industry. I mean, we all must have heard about quality control orders, which our commerce department has brought in. So all
these
pacts,
these trade pacts are not worth the paper that they are signed on, unfortunately. And the leaders can keep saying what they want, but as things stand, there's a 25% tariff, and nobody knows what's next in terms of the ongoing tariff wars. On that note, I'm going to slip into a very short break. Come back with lots more on the other side. Stay with us. All right, I'm now going to turn my attention to Pakistan, where an Indian fisherman has allegedly died by suicide at a prison in Karachi's Malir area. The report claimed that the Indian fishermen are often detained for illegal fishing, as some maritime boundaries are poorly marked. Many boats lack the technology to determine their exact location. But what really happened with this fisherman was that due to these conditions, he was picked up by the Pakistani security forces and Pakistani authorities, and he was found dead. There are suspicious circumstances, and there is more than enough, room for doubt that he hung himself, because that's what it looks like, that there is enough and more doubt. He was arrested on February 2022, and what I want to know now is that this is not an isolated case. There are many such cases and instances where Indian fishermen have crossed over due to poorly demarcated boundaries. What happens, and is this another layer of why the India-Pakistan relationship is so unpleasant and people-to-people level. Fakhar Yousafzai, a Pakistani journalist, joins me to talk more on that. Fakhar, good to have you on the show. The fact is, it's an unfortunate incident, but it's not an isolated incident, is it?
You're absolutely right. Actually, this fisherman was arrested in 2022, almost 3 years ago. This is unfortunate, and I think so both the countries should think about it, and especially whenever you arrest someone, the fisherman, by the Pakistani authorities or by the Indian authorities, of course you should provide a good atmosphere to them. If they are in prison, but it doesn't mean they are human. If you are not providing a good atmosphere or a place where they can live easily, then why you are arresting them? A fisherman, I think so. This is not a crime if someone cross a line where he is going for a fishing and you arrest them. I think so. Both the countries should set on this issue. After 6 months and 1 year, we listen about that Pakistan releasing 30 or 20 fishermen, and from other side India release 50 or 40 fishermen from New Delhi via Wagah border. I don't know why you are treating like
But
this
Fakhar,
to each other.
a lot of people believe that these innocent fishermen are actually used by Pakistani authorities as bargaining chips. There are several instances when they've even completed their sentences but still have not been released because they're being used as bargaining chips.
You're right. For example, if we are talking now about this person who died and who committed suicide, according to the jail superintendent, Mr. Hussain, as he said. But why he is committing a suicide? Of course, he was not able to live there further. For 3 years, he was in prison. I think so. What was his crime? He was a fisherman. He was not a spy. He was not a soldier who was fighting for India, and he crossed the border and Pakistani authority arrest them. I think so. We shouldn't use, I'm talking about the Pakistan, we shouldn't use the ordinary person for bargaining or something. What we are gaining from this? If we arrest the 50 or 100 or more than that, the fishermen, and we keep them in a prison, what we are gaining from that? From that, what we are gaining? I don't think so that we can gain something from that. Of course, we should focus on the issues internally, as well as we should focus on the issues with India.
Yes.
But not. Yeah.
Indeed, Fakhar, thank you so much for that refreshing perspective, candid as always and refreshing. Thanks much for joining me. And on that note, I'm going to slip into a very short break, come back and talk more about an Indian origin MP from Canada, Chandra Arya, and why he's not in the Canadian leadership race anymore. Stay with me. Turning attention to Canada, where the Liberal Party has revoked Indian origin MP Chandra Arya's bid to run for party leadership and his nomination for the Ottawa Nepean constituency due to what is being seen as alleged ties to the Indian government. The Liberal Party has not disclosed the reasons behind barring Arya, who's actually a 3-term MP, from participating in the recent leadership race or from running again in his constituency. But it seems that Arya, who visited India in August, met Prime Minister Modi, did not inform the Canadian government about his trip, despite the ongoing freeze in bilateral relations. But is that a good enough reason for somebody, a 3-term MP, to actually be stripped of his powers or his chances to fight again? The Canadian Security Intelligence Service had in fact briefed the government on Arya's alleged close ties. Nothing, however, has been proven. These are hearsay and allegations. So the decision to in fact disqualify him was reportedly made solely by the Liberal Party, and the MP has rejected all these allegations. Why? Because he has spoken about the Khalistani issue time and again in Canada, and something he feels he's now being penalized for by the Liberal Party. The Khalistani issue is important, significant in Canada. The Sikhs are 2% of the population there, the largest outside of India, and which is why the several segments or the sections within the Sikh population who subscribe to the Khalistani thinking seem to have been upset by Chandan Arya. I want to quickly put out the big questions that I want to ask my guest joining me this evening on this issue. First up, was Arya banned over anti-Khalistan comments? That's the single most important question. Is that the reason why he's out of the race? The second important question, it was Justin Trudeau who really led the tirade against India. He's out, but the Liberals continue to back anti-India elements. Or is that the case? Next, will Canada actually hold free and fair polls? That's a very important question, simply because if voices of dissent are being trampled, then what's the fairness that one is talking about? Next question, will this hinder and come in the way of recovering India-Canada ties? They're on the upswing, but could they be impacted by these decisions that the Liberal Party is taking? Let's get in Professor Swaran Singh as well as Manjur Seth, former ambassador. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on India Global. Professor Singh, let me start with you. At the end of the day, one can question a particular political party's decision to give or not give ticket to any candidate. But it seems that the reasons for stripping the possibility of his candidature is the fact that he spoke against the Khalistani issue.
Thank you, Gauri, for having me on your program. It is indeed strange, it is unusual, it is unprecedented that such a summary trial kind of situation is being seen by Liberal Party in Canada. As you mentioned, three-time MP from 2015. Apparently, there has been no due process of any investigation. There is no formal explanation as to what has caused this. And suddenly the Prime Minister, Carney, announcing that he's the one who's going to contest from an Nepean constituency in Ottawa is very strange. But let me also add that this is something which normally happens, and it's not just the Liberal Party. From 2019, 2021, that CSIS, which is Canada Security Intelligence Services, have recently again reiterated the fear that countries like India and China and potentially Russia, Pakistan, Iran could be influencing through disinformation elections.
Exactly, you made a valid point, and I was coming to that, but those are wild allegations. Those are completely wild allegations rejected by India, and in the midst of that, you have a specific person representing the Indo-Canadian community there, and a very important member of, well, the Hindu community in the Indo-Canadian community there. And Manju said, do you think that he's being targeted for his faith, as he says?
I think faith may be one aspect, but also the fact that he, did not or does not support the pro-Khalistani elements within the party and in Canada, and he has spoken out against him. I think that could also be a factor. And faith alone, I don't think is the only factor. And also because they are saying that they've been, the previous, under the Trudeau administration also, and the Trudeau government, they have been saying that India has been interfering in their elections. And I think, these kind of allegations are very unbelievable, but somehow the narrative is being built and reinforced by the Canadians within their own, and they're saying that security agencies have also done it, the Nature case. All these things point to a certain narrative building as well. And I think this particular incident where Indian origin Canadian MP, Mr. Chandra Arya, has been debarred from even the leadership race and now even from his own constituency. So it is something which needs to be, I think, investigated by other agencies and by the Canadian government again, with some kind of independent agency.
Professor Singh, which brings me to ask you just how important the Khalistani vote bank is in Canada, that weeks before the election, to ensure that that Liberal Party placates and keeps the Khalistani vote bank on its side, it is taking these measures against Chandra Arya.
There is no doubt that NDP, being a coalition partner of Liberal Party, for Liberal Party remains very significant, and therefore one has seen a large number of examples of sympathizers in Liberal Party, starting from the very top, the Pierre family, the Trudeau family, sorry, themselves being very closely connected to this entire movement, the kind of license virtually given to some of these elements to do things which are absolutely unacceptable in any civilized nation, in any democracy. So that is very clear. But apparently, if you saw the statement coming from Jagmeet Singh two days ago, he believes that this time his party is going to face enormous challenge. So there is a sense of possibility of voters rejecting his party this time or not supporting the way it did last time. But it's also interesting to see that media, the Globe and Mail, for example, only yesterday mentioned how the kind of South Asian community was raising funds, even for the other Conservative Party, Poilevia, as a candidate, and he had to go
Yes.
out and clarify. He had to say, I'm not receiving any such thing, and I'm winning elections on my own. And that
Let me
paranoia,
ask that, Professor Singh, let me ask that to Manju Seth as well, because, you know, at the end of the day, the Khalistani vote bank will also decide that how much will the India-Canada relationship recover, because Mark Carney may not be Justin Trudeau, but he is representing the Liberal Party. And if he comes back as the next Prime Minister of Canada, what do you think will be his outlook towards the Indo-Canadian relationship in the backdrop of keeping the Khalistani vote bank happy?
Yes, he will have to do a kind of balancing act, because though he has spoken immediately on taking office that he will rebuild and reset the India-Canadian ties, and there's also talk of appointing new high commissioners in each other's country. So he has spoken of that because he does understand that the India-Canada relationship is important, and India is important for Canada's economy. And I think he will try and do a balancing act. But yes, as you very rightly said, the party is dependent on its Khalistani, pro-Khalistani elements in its support base and in the coalition partners. So I think he will have to do a balancing act. And this might impact the relationship to some extent, but given that he has spoken about resetting ties and rebuilding the ties with India, he might be able to pull off a kind of balancing act and yet manage a good relationship with India. But that we have to remain, and it remains to be seen. And we don't know whether he will come back into power, because Pierre Poilievre also appears to be having a fairly good sort of chances of winning the election this time. But we don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. It's April 28th, so it's not really very far. It's the minimum amount as per the Canadian Constitution, which is 37 days. That's the amount of campaigning that the Prime Minister has really left this to. But Professor Singh, I want to bring in another aspect of this, which is that what Chandra Arya is talking about here, that he is being targeted for speaking out against the Khalistanis, the fact that there are now voices in the Canadian administration which are making wild allegations about quote-unquote India influence in this election. Let me then ask you about the fact that in terms of the stakes here, what are we really looking at? Because it's not just about Mr. Arya, it's also about the entire Indo-Canadian community, how significant they are in these elections. We've spoken about the Khalistanis, but what about the Indo-Canadian community?
I think it's a very bad example, the way Chandra Arya has been treated in case he's finally disallowed to contest any election, either for the nomination of leadership role or in his constituency, which apparently is clear now. Mark Carney wants to contest from the Nepean constituency, as he's already announced. This will send a very terrible signal that how the state itself could be pandering to certain extremist sentiments, whereas a very large number of critical talent that Indian origin people or Indian citizens provide to Canada's development and stability and security are not just limited to Sikhs, and Sikhs are not all Khalistanis in that sense.
Sikhs are not all Khalistanis, and Sikhs are not the only Indo-Canadian community here. Quickly, Mr. Manju Seth, I'm running out of time.
Absolutely. I think they understand, but they don't understand. This is what I believe, because the way the pro-Khalistani elements have been able to steal the limelight, so to speak, and be in the limelight through their anti-India and their High Commission and protests against the Hindu community, etc. the way they have vandalizing temples, etc. They've managed to remain in the limelight and create a narrative of an anti-Indian kind of narrative they've been able to create, and the rest of the community, the Indo-Canadian community, which is not supporters of the Sikhs, who are not supporters of the Khalistani movement, and other Hindus and other communities from India, from other religious communities. I think they do not support this kind of thing, but the Canadian leadership, it appears, is not very clear that this particular element or this segment does not represent the entire Indo-Canadian community.
Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. But the problem arises when the leaders start pandering to this more than any other specific community. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on this very important story that we're going to keep coming back to, given the fact the Canadian elections are on the 28th of April. But bottom line, viewers, on this is that the Liberal Party's ousting of MP Chandra Arya is a blatant attempt to silence the voices of the Indo-Canadian community, undermine their representation in Parliament. Despite his 3 terms of service, Arya is being punished not for any wrongdoing, but for standing up for values of Hindu Canadians and opposing the Khalistani movement. The party's claim of foreign interference is nothing but a thinly veiled excuse to sideline a duly elected representative who dare to challenge their narrative. In their desperation to appease extremists, the Liberals are sacrificing the very principles of democracy and free expression they always espouse. And on that note, I'm going to slip into a very short break. More on the other side. Stay with us. Now, 1 in 5 ultra-high net worth individuals in India are either currently in the process to move abroad or are planning to migrate soon, according to a report by Kotak Private Banking. The report, titled Top of the Pyramid, India Decoding the Ultra HNI, reveals that these individuals intend to reside permanently in their chosen host country while retaining their Indian citizenship. Now, why are they looking to do so? Is it mostly professionals? What are the reasons for them to do so? Why are entrepreneurs and inheritors not choosing this path? Which is the age group that is most inclined to migrate? And most importantly, what are the factors that are contributing to this? I'm going to get an expert to talk more about this, because this is something that impacts everyone, from policymakers to those in the government to those in business as well. At the end of the day, why are rich Indians looking to move out? That's something I want to now get an Andre Boyko to understand more on, in terms of the significance of this trend. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to me on India Global today. It's a worrying trend. It's a worrying trend for me that our HNIs are wanting to move out. Could you help us with some statistics as to what is the scale at which we are looking at this trend?
Due to the statistics of Ministry of Foreign Affairs of India, over 2 lakh of Indians gave up their citizenship in 2023. So we can say that key motivation in this is they're looking for better lifestyle, better education, healthcare, business expansion. It's especially for NHI global mobility through the strongest passport. Yes.
In fact, the report clearly says that a favorable business environment, legal and taxation policies, access to global mobility enable these individuals to explore some of these newer areas, and that's the reason why they are pursuing investment opportunities worldwide. Which are the countries or destinations that are now being preferred by ultra HNIs from India?
There are a few of them. So it's France, it's Portugal, it's Caribbean countries. So it's like kind of Grenada, Grenadian citizenship, Antigua, Barbuda, Dominican citizenship, also Malta.
The other important aspect of the report also says that those in the working age, that is 31 to 40, are very inclined to move out. This is the age group which is looking to build businesses, looking to create something. So ideally, India would want individuals who are rich in this age group to build their businesses in India, isn't it? Why are the youth attracted to go overseas?
Basically, they continue to build business in India because it's not a good idea to move your business from India abroad. So it's more about to be free in the world. So you can live 3 months there, 3 months there, 6 months there. So and after COVID, the main trend among the rich people is like global mobility.
And while global mobility, of course, is preferred by ultra-rich people, what are the costs involved in terms of uprooting yourself from one geography to another, whether in terms of business or whether it's in terms of personal investments? What are the kind of costs and timing that we are looking at?
Okay, it depends of the program, of course, and if you want to get, for example, residence permit in France, it starts from 20,000 euros per family. So Malta citizenship is 750,000 euros. This is European passport in from 15 to 18 months. Portugal golden visa, and also Caribbean countries where you can get citizenship in $150,000, and for example, Grenadian citizenship and $350,000 with investment return after the 5 years, and you will get passport in from 3 to 6 months.
Yes, even Trump is trying to come out with the gold card. But I'll tell you in terms of numbers why this is important for me and for our viewers, which is that the number of ultra HNIs is in fact expected to increase from 2.8 to 4.3 lakh, and the kind of wealth they have is likely to increase from 232 lakh crore to 359 lakh crore. You're talking about a lot of wealth and a lot of wealthy people. India would want them to stay here, spend money here, be part of the economy here. Are there some measures that we can take to stop people from going overseas, as in make India a preferred destination for them?
I would say that nobody stopped to spending money in India or to move forever from India, and this revocation of the citizenship, it's more pursued by that want to be I don't know, that they get Indian overseas cards and that they are continuing business in India. So nobody moved their business out of India because there is no sense of it. So in India, the cost of manufacturing is less, so all costs are less, even cost of labor. And India, this is one of the fast growing countries in the world. So it can be a kind of mistake that their people move away forever. So it's not like this.
Okay, that's a very positive note. But finally, I want to ask you this, Andre, which is that the report shows that there are more professionals moving abroad than entrepreneurs. While some may evaluate and see this as a brain drain, we would want our tech experts, the big minds in marketing, big minds in technology, to stay here rather than go overseas. Would you also read this in the same way, a brain drain trend?
Yeah, yes, also. On the other hand, I think that it takes some time. And maybe in a couple of years, when the economy become maybe more flourish for them, they will come back. Because now the salaries in India are growing. Personally, me, I live in India half of my time. So, and I like India, so I believe that people come back here.
All right, let's leave it there. Andre, thank you so much for joining me on on a trend that personally disappoints me, because I would want the rich people to be here in India and part of the growth story. All right, on that note, shifting focus now to breaking news coming in on the broadcast. India's Lok Sabha has passed the Immigration and Foreigners Bill 2025 after a discussion on the proposed law that will modernize and consolidate India's immigration laws. Junior Home Minister Nityanand Rai introduced the bill today on behalf of Home Minister Amit Shah. During the discussion today, Home Minister said India welcomes those who come here to help in development, but those who come to create trouble, whether it's the Rohingyas or the Bangladeshi illegal immigrants, will face strong action. Let's get in my colleague Arjun Sabar Mahendran to fill us in with the specifics of this bill and why it's so important.
Well, Gauri, Union Home Minister Amit Shah has categorically sought to dispel the misinformation regarding the Immigration and Foreigners Bill 2025. Let me underline what he said. He said the bill was designed with the intention to monitor those who come to India with wrong intentions and not to scuttle the stay or visit of these persons who have no ill intentions. Now, after our discussion followed by Amit Shah's address, the Lok Sabha has just right now passed the Immigration and Foreigners Bill 2025. Now, Shah's remarks also assume special significance in the light of the claims by opposition that some provisions of the bill might seek to streamline various services related to immigration and foreigners. They might even give arbitrary powers, but the Home Minister has cleared all of those doubts that the opposition has, and the Lok Sabha has cleared the bill right now. Now the bill goes to the upper house, as we all know, before being accorded into law. The Home Minister, Mr. Shah, has also added, as very important, that the immigration bill will also boost India's tourism sector in a big way.
Okay.
And it will, in fact, also be a testament to India's growth story and play a big role in helping the country to become, in fact, the third largest economy, Gauri.
All right, Arjun, we leave it there. Important because it modernizes and completely revolutionizes India's immigration laws. We leave it there. And on that note, completely timed out in this edition of India Global. Thanks so much for watching.